Hello out there. Today we have a very special young woman with us, and we're going to talk about newspapers. My father used to say, I like to reminisce about tomorrow. And we're going to talk about newspapers because my father said a job on a newspaper is a special thing. Every day you take something you found out about, you put it down, and in a matter of hours, it becomes a product. Not just a product like a can or something. It's a personal product that a lot of people take the time to sit down and read. Today, we're going to introduce you to the print princess, the media literate hottie, the girl who reads newspapers. Kelsey Russell, the media hottie, is a media literary influencer and co-host of First Stop News. Kelsey Russell uses print media as the vehicle for promoting a natural sense of curiosity, improving media literacy, and better emotional regulations when interacting with the news. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. Most people say newspapers are boring. Why do you say they're not?
Oh, they're so not boring. I feel like I tell people newspapers to me are like gossip. I mean, it's just our generation likes to say we're getting the tea. So I don't find them boring because I think for being younger, the normal way that we consume news is through social media. But for me, it almost feels like a new form of media. So they're not boring. You get to look at pictures, you get to hold things, but also I think you get to expand your brain and get into topics that might not be fed to you naturally through this algorithm that honestly actually is the most unnatural thing ever. So you get something new, you get to hold it. So that's why I think it's fun.
Do people ever say to you, Kelsey, why would you even bother trusting what's written in the newspaper?
Oh yeah, all the time. People are like, I don't trust the media. And I always tell them, who are you talking about? Like, what is the media? Is always my first question to them. So, and I mean, a lot of my supporters, so when I post TikToks, I always typically get a comment of, why are you reading that source? Why are you reading a New York Times? Why are you reading a Wall Street Journal? But what I always tell my audience is what I'm teaching you all is media literacy skills, right? So what's the difference between a local newspaper and a legacy institution? Why am I reading the New York Times? Why can I not get the Washington Post on my door, but somebody in the DC area can? So yeah, people ask me all the time that question. And I also sometimes say back, do you even know the Instagram accounts you're following? Do you know the TikTok accounts you're following to get news? So usually I have a snarky remark, but I do get that comment often.
So you don't think it's a lost cause for young people to want to read
No,
newspapers online or in paper?
no. I mean, I think as soon as we start the narrative that young people don't want to learn, they don't want to read anymore, we put them into a box and we create a narrative when the reality is Gen Z, Gen Alpha, so those that are about anywhere from about 10 to 28 years old right now, we're a generation that has the most access, quick access to information that we've ever had. We're the generation where if you tell us something, we're going to go on our phone and be like, I'm going to look this up because I don't believe what you're saying. So what that lets me know is we're a very curious generation. But what's happened is we're a very overwhelmed generation with
Mhm.
information. We have so much at our fingertips that I think it's important that we reteach the skills of how to look for good information. What does good information feel like? What are some signs of bad information? So I do think young people still want to learn. And that's, I think, just a trait of being younger, but also a trait that shouldn't just be attributed to young people. I think people are curious throughout all of their lives, but especially in this like teenage 20s phase, you have a lot of questions about what this whole life thing is.
My father, when I look back on it, was probably the first social media influencer. He wrote a newspaper column. He went out and
Yeah,
slaved for it, the old fashioned way, hitting the streets and having to learn a story, discover it, get all the information, run back to the office,
yeah.
type it up, meet a deadline, shoe leather. And then it went out to the people in the newsstands, they bought it, and then the TV stole from it like that.
hmm
So he was social media then. But now, I don't know if he'd hold up as much because everything's just so fast.
So fast. But you know what I do think? I was reading I was reading some things about your dad and people's favorite headlines of him and the way he would start leads on stories. And I do think what's similar is that your father had this ability to almost be very humorous, like in his leads of what was going on, and had a style. So people knew, okay, this is Breslin's writing. And I think that that same thing happens with influencers where they start their video the same way or they have the same background. So I do think your dad probably would hold up in some way. And there's still some similarities between what makes an iconic journalist and what makes an iconic newsfluencer or influencer. But I definitely think he would stand. I think if anything, the tips and tricks he used are probably used by people and they don't know where they come from.
It's a good point because he said journalism schools are good to get a job, but I don't know what else they're good for.
That
I
might be
don't,
all schools. That might be just school in general.
he said, I don't like the word journalism to begin with. He calls it, I call it news reporting, and that consists of using your 2 feet. The only lesson then you could give people is how to climb stairs because there are no stories on the first floor. You see, journalism's still going to work.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
So you think newspapers aren't a lost cause then for young people?
No, I just think newspapers really need to put their thinking caps on and realize that the reason that they exist might need to change. So, what I would say is that newspapers used to be the main source of people getting their information, and now they're not. That's over with. And I think a lot of newspapers are in a grieving period and trying to figure out, you know, so if our point isn't to get information out, what is it? And I would argue they could really stand as a great place to teach people tools, to solve a
Mhm.
lot of issues going on in book bans, to help people understand their civic rights, right? Like in the United States, it's a huge deal that we have an amendment that says we can have freedom of the press. Like we can have an event happen and there are reporters there and they are able to say exactly what happened and their words do not have to be amended, do not have to be changed. So I
Mhm.
think it would be really cool if newspapers could think of themselves as more of an educational tool in reteaching a generation how to be media literate. And maybe let go of the fact that people are getting their information now on social media. And that just, it is what it is. It's not wrong, right, and different. That's just the way the world goes. I mean, we know the way the radio changed things, TV changed things. Now social media has changed how we get our information.
Well, you're right. Because my father again said journalism should be truthful and entertaining. You
Hmm.
know, with news and important facts, you can entertain people too. Have a little fun. Just don't bore them to death.
Yes, nobody wants to be bored anywhere.
So you basically trust the institution of media when you have a president that says the media is corrupt, the fake media. When
Yeah.
you read the paper, you think you're reading fiction?
I think what happened with social media and the internet is people were able to see that a lot of the people that were writing stories didn't look like them or they didn't feel like their stories were reflected properly. So we see all of these breakouts of independent media, and this starts to happen at the same time that social media is on the rise. So I think people got confused with I don't trust a New York Times. I don't trust a Wall Street Journal. And what they really meant was, I don't feel represented. I don't feel like my voice is heard. I feel like those two things have gotten conflated when the reality is we're not talking about trust anymore. We're talking about anger. We're also talking about a bunch of people in the United States whose local media has been lost and they're angry about that. So when they turn to these big box news places and all they're talking about are issues that don't affect them, they feel like they can't trust the media anymore. So I think it's been this domino effect of trust has become a blanketed term for people being angry, people being sad, people feeling lost and unrepresented in media. And being able to say you don't trust it is just it's an easy way out. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an oh wow moment. Do you talk to young writers and what do they tell you?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I love talking to my young writers. So the funniest thing is a lot of their friends, especially folks who are journalists, their friends don't know what they do, which I think is funny. So I'm like, my friends who are consultants, those are people I really don't know what they do. But my friends who are journalists, young journalists, and people I speak to, they say that they are so proud to be in this industry. And I actually just wrapped up giving a keynote at the National Press Foundation. They have a widening the pipeline fellowship. So it's about like 30 journalists all around the United States, usually of color. And they're so excited for the future of journalism. They're excited to see how people like me, who are influencers, and journalists like them can have a better connection, how we can use social media together. So, a lot of excitement, but also fear of like, will their job exist? Working in institutions where people higher up than them that are making decisions don't see their opinions as valid and worthy, which I think is just something cyclical that happens in the workspace. So fearful, but also excited for what the future is going to hold in journalism.
Wow. Now, did you go to journalism school?
No, I am a sociologist. I actually, all my degrees are in sociology and education, and I say like a sprinkle of policy because I went to Teachers College at Columbia and did a policy concentration, whatever that means too.
My father was very protective of the profession, and he used to say, "Don't call me a journalist. I hate the word. It's
Really?
pretentious."
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I do think it has some pretension. I do see because there's so many barriers of entry to be a journalist. But I think I've noticed people now say they're storytellers, right?
I'm getting at
Yeah, storytellers.
reporters,
Yep,
a writer.
yep,
It's just funny. It's taken on so many things. But yet, my father had tremendous respect for like young people, and he would say when they'd say the profession's dead, I'd say, "Pop, is the profession dead?" He said to me, "Look out. There'll be a kid coming out of nowhere who'll be able to
yeah,
write like hell. Never
exactly.
die."
Yeah, and writing, I think, is probably the saddest thing for me that's become a lost art. Storytelling, I think, has really evolved because of our phones, right? Like the ease we can story tell, the way I can put down my phone and tell a story, but a lot of folks don't know how to write. And to me, that's like the basis, that's the base of good storytelling, is good writing. So.
My father used to say there, short sentences win.
Yes, my mom she's a big, my parents did not play by my writing, and they always say with writing, if the least knowledgeable person in the room about the topic can't understand what you're talking about, you're not a good writer, you know?
Well, back to your respect with journalism, he used to tell me a job on a newspaper is a special thing. Every
Mm,
day you took something that you found out about and you put it down in a matter of hours.
yeah.
It becomes a product, not just a product like a can or something. It's a
Mhm.
personal product that a lot of people take the time to sit down and read.
Right.
And that's what found I discovered you. I said, "Wow, she's doing exactly what he's saying."
Yeah. I mean, I tell young people too, like and my friends now they read the newspaper. I'm like, okay, this is super cool. But I told them it's such a fun exercise because as silly as it sounds, to set aside time to read, to be able to audibly gasp, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's happening, or oh, that's disgusting. It brings some light back into from the worst news to the best news happening around the world. And I always tell young people it's like an accessory too. It's really cute to be young, sit on the train and read the paper. You don't see that many people doing that.
No, you don't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a dying thing. That's a scary
Yeah.
thing. That so many people are losing their jobs at this time, and here you are trying to uplift a profession
Yeah.
that they would say young people don't care about. You seem to be the opposite of that.
Yeah, I totally think young people care. I just don't. I always say another thing about journalism is, and I actually said this when I was giving the keynote, and some of the journalists disagreed. I was like, we need to make journalism sexy. Like, if you go on
Yeah.
TikTok, right, you scroll and you see people, there's a lot of people who do day in the lives of their jobs, like day in the life of a dermatologist, day in the life of an investment banker. And by all means, investment banking might be the most unsexy job, but the salary is like the sexiest thing. People make things seem sexy about their work. They say the background, they give you the backstage pass, and that's what I think journalism is missing is there's some really, even though it might seem boring and mundane to the journalists, the storytellers, there's some super sexy, cool, attractive parts that I think young people need to see so they can also be interested in those roles, you know?
So it's an important profession.
Totally. Literally tomorrow, I'm moderating a panel about this, and somebody said something so profound that you can care about any issue in the world. I don't care. It can be abortion rights, it can be fast fashion, it can be food equity, but your second thing has to be journalism because how will you know the problem exists if somebody's not telling the story about it? How are people going to know it's a problem? So everybody should care about journalism if you care about anything in the world. And if you don't care about anything in the world, well, that seems kind of boring to me. So that's what I think it's important.
You know, as I listen to you, I'm moved by what you're saying because it always seemed to me to be a profession that my father used to wander around, discover something, find something, and then write about it and tell the truth. He used to say, I don't care so much about the facts. I tell the truth."
Mm,
See, he
mm,
wasn't fake news. He wanted to get to the heart and soul of people.
yeah,
I mean, do you talk to them about that? Like, right, it's not some sort of mechanics like Donald Trump is saying, where it's just they're liars, they're liars. They're not liars. The people out there
yeah,
trying, well, maybe some of them are, but I think at the level of a Jimmy Breslin or anybody like him, Pulitzer Prize winning talent,
yeah,
this is a real profession that people should aspire towards.
yeah. I mean,
As long as they get the money, he'd say.
yeah, money's important, right? You're sparking my mind because that's not really something that I've ever, talked to my audience about. I give them very deliberate tips of how to spot bad news, good news, what are the skills of doing that. But I never really thought about it going of the angle of, truth versus facts, right? And I think it kind of also gets into a conversation like, as a sociologist who's done research, you're not looking for facts. You're looking for people to tell you the truth of what they're experiencing. You kind of have my brain going of different things I could talk about.
Uh-huh. And that's why my father used to walk into a story. He'd like to come in alone. He
Yeah.
played the single. He'd come onto a story when no one was there. He'd always get it from the other side of the street. He wrote a
Yeah.
famous column about the gravedigger in Washington, D.C., John F. Kennedy.
Yes,
He
I
would say
saw
the
this one.
gravedigger. But he didn't want to be with anyone else. He came upon a story on his own. And he would just walk up to somebody and say the name of this podcast. He'd say, "Yeah, what's doing?"
Yeah,
And from there, you learn and you talk. And I think if you spoke to a lot of your journalist people, it sounds, oh, clumsy, yeah, what's doing? Well, that all you need is a little bit.
exactly. That's so true. That's so true.
This episode of Breslin's What's Doing is brought to you by the delicious food of Bamonte's. Bamonte's at 32 Withers Street, Brooklyn, New York, is a family-owned and operated Italian-American restaurant that has been in business since 1900. It is the oldest Italian restaurant in Brooklyn and one of the oldest in New York City. Once again, try our delicious food at 32 Withers Street, Brooklyn, or call 718-384-8831. Bamonte's. EV Safety. Reduce your liability. Protect your customers and property. Keep insurance premiums down. Let EV Safety develop your facility's lithium-ion risk management plan with training, certification, and equipment. More U.S. cities are passing safety ordinances requiring on-site countermeasures to fight lithium-ion battery fires. EV fires are inevitable, as is your liability if you operate EV charging stations or park EVs on your property. When you have an EV battery fire on your property, a few minutes can make the difference between cosmetic and catastrophic damage. No company can afford a hazmat vent on their property. Contact us today for your evaluation on all your training and certification at evsafetyproducts.com. Once again, evsafetyproducts.com. Medford Fast Lube. Put your car in good hands. With more than 25 years of experience, the experts at Medford Fast Lube will care for your vehicle like it's our own without breaking the bank. Take the stress out of the unexpected. If your car needs repair, it can be expensive as well as stressful. Take some of that weight off your shoulders with free estimates from the experts at Medford Fast Lube. Our friendly staff is here to help. Located at Route 112 in Medford, New York. www.medfordfastlube.com or dial 631-475-2107. Medford Fast Lube.
You know, when you said something else earlier that everybody's afraid of to have an opinion,
Yeah.
I think that's the kiss of death for a young writer.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's something, even, listen, I tell my audience, like, I don't know if there's any source that is truly unbiased. If you want to get a story and you want to hear from people, their opinion matters. It matters a lot. So, as an opinionated person, though, I tell people you should have an opinion. You should stand on it and be willing to change it too. Like your opinion can change. That's the whole point. Your opinion should change. If they stay the same, that's more of a concern.
You're absolutely right. That's why I knew my father would like you because he said, "You know what I do for a living? I write opinion. I get prizes for it and money for it. and it's also a lot of fun. All around me, I hear people say, "Oh, I'm not judgmental." Where did that come from? Is that a synonym for non-alive? If you were alive, you want to enjoy an opinion on a president's girlfriend.
Yes. I like that's a great please tell me where that quote's. Send me that quote after this because I definitely need that.
No, but if you don't have an opinion, you're telling me all the people are walking on eggshells. They're trying to write a story and they're nervous they're going to say something wrong or this or that. I think that's really a very bad area to be in. It sounds like you're crucifying yourself.
Very bad. And that's why I mean, I think that that's why we've seen this rise of people who are news influencers. So, like, where I stand in the midst of kind of in between the person who's consuming the news and the journalist, the reporter, is this person who can come on their social media account and I can retell the story, but I can also put my opinion into that piece. So, I think that that's why we've seen a rise is that for some reason that has been lost in journalism. So other people like myself have been the ones to insert their opinions, which I just think that's what's happened.
Why do you think that? Because newspapers could be a little bit boring with 51 sentence lead sentence lead-ins?
I think it's because like the world we live in now, it's like a good journalist, a trustworthy one is one whose opinion we don't know. And I also think now with being on the internet, like I can look up a journalist and find a lot of information about them. So I sometimes wonder if journalists feel the need to really take their opinion out of it because let's say a journalist writes a story about the economy and how it's affecting, I don't know, single mothers working
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
in a cleaning industry or something
uh-huh.
like that, right?
Yeah.
What if I go, I mean, there's somebody who is a internet troll who might go and search and see that that journalist is a member of $1 million empire family. And how could they have an opinion about this?
Mhm,
So I think
mhm.
because people's information has become so accessible, journalists have begun protecting themselves by not sharing their opinion because people will go make their own opinions versus the fact that I think that that journalist's opinion really matters in why they're writing the story. So that's maybe where that's coming from.
That's a heavy. It's very interesting, by the
Yeah.
way, because my father, in one way, was an ultimate showman. He hosted
Yes.
Saturday Night Live. He was in the French Connection. He made beer commercials. He made cereal commercials. So in one way, it defied logic in terms of, oh, I'm a journalist. I am just a
Right.
news reporter. He was a big personality, and then he was a Pulitzer Prize winner. So I'm a little confused about that also because most journalists could not do what he did. They could not
Yeah.
get out there and be so public. And it's just what you're saying today. I think that's really just the individual, by the way.
Yeah.
Some
I
of
do too. Some people will want to take a lot of opportunities that come. They'll want to have a wide breadth of things going on. And some people like to do this thing and then not really be known.
Well, it's, I guess, defense of my father. We had 6 kids. He had to get the money, and when they were coming with the money for advertising and or anything, he said, "Yeah, I'll do it." It wasn't anything that was criminal. Why not?
Yeah.
Plus, he had fun with the business, and that's
Yeah.
something I think most young writers. And you brought it up earlier. He wrote humor. My father. He wrote a character, Anucchio. Was he real or not? No one knows. He was a
Yeah.
mobster. And the FBI came to our house, banging on the door, wanting to know where's Anucchio. My father said, find him yourself. They said, Breslin's a difficult interview.
Yeah. That's funny. I mean, yeah, but also humor is a skill too. Not everybody can be funny either.
He,
Some
he,
people are born to laugh, some are born to
No,
make.
but that's what I mean. But he got that by circulating. He knew cops, he knew robbers. He was able to have a colorful writing life because of it and use humor. Now, if you're just going to stay at your computer screen and do everything, I think you're killing yourself. I think you're setting
100%.
yourself up for misery.
Yeah, 100%. And I also think, if that's, I think that that's also especially bigger institutions that have a lot more capital. I do
Hmm.
think that it is up to them to reshift the way this younger generation is coming in. Like maybe it's that we don't want you sitting on your computer all day. Maybe it's that we genuinely want you to go out in the street for 2 hours and just talk to people, not report, just talk to people. So, but now that's kind of what's left up to school. And now you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to get that experience. So
Well,
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, because he used to say, you got to circulate. He'd tell me all the time. I said, what do you think the key is? He says, you got to circulate.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You got to be out there. You got to talk to people. You got to have a drink. You got to have a cup of coffee. You
Yep.
got to be out there. You're not supposed to be at a newsroom behind a desk.
No.
That's just a deadline time with nervous energy. Write the thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
He'd say, I have to fetch news. You got to go out there every day. He says, you fetch news each day of accidents and arrogance, of dancing and drama, fire and fame, love and life, mayhem and murder. Nobody brings you the news of your own death.
Those are
The
words.
only news you don't get is the news of your own death.
Wow. Those are words. I love that.
This is what happens with a career in newspapers. And the reason why I thought you were enthralling when I saw you is because, God, you're like one of a kind. I yell at people, why don't you read? Why don't you read?
Yeah. They don't get it.
And are they listening to you? Are they responding to you? Are they starting, like, you have so many followers now?
I know, it's crazy. It's actually crazy that I started as an influencer before the newspaper.
Yeah.
I would make lifestyle content. So I just made content about being in college and everything. And I gained a following through that. But really what I realized I was doing was storytelling. And then when I was like, oh wait, guys, there's all these other storytellers in in the newspaper, and I don't have to tell my story anymore. Oh, I rather do this. I rather do this. So it's over 100,000 people who just really enjoy me reading the news. I mean, people recognize me as the newspaper girl. That's kind of crazy. But that's all, especially when it's younger people, that's like, oh, how enlightening, how beautiful.
Well, they without plugging things, because I don't get anything from it, but boy, if they read some of Breslin's books or some of his columns, there's so much out there. You can go to the library and Google them and get it all.
Yeah.
They'll first off see great writing, but they'll see great storytelling.
Yes.
And that can help any young journalist. I think, you should always rob from the best. So I think I know I would do it.
Yeah. No, I think too, what's happened is I'm happy you brought up robbing, because if you don't
It's not
know,
robbing, it's you steal, you're supposed to.
right? But there's a lot of beef, a lot of arguments between influencers and journalists, because a lot of influencers who report news, they don't credit the journalists, they don't credit where they got the information. They're acting like they
Yeah.
got it brand new. And what I've kind of done is say, no, this is where I got the information. I'm just telling you all about what I read, where I read it, and the importance of reading. So a lot of journalists have a lot of hate, a lot of frustration towards influencers who do that. And rightfully so. Rightfully so.
Well, again, back to what he said. I tell the truth. I don't need the facts. You have these people inserting facts. Now we don't even know if they're accurate. We don't know who they are, what their credentials are.
Yeah.
Maybe in defense of Donald Trump in this with fake media, maybe they are skewing the facts.
Yeah.
Now, my father did not do that. When he wrote something and he slaved over each word, every sentence, every quote. If there was a mistaken quote, it's because of the mad energy of the rush of the moment.
Absolutely. And I think that's the other thing, that this whole fake news, fake media, people make mistakes. The important thing is, right, that and especially in the internet age, you can acknowledge your mistakes and say what was updated about an article. So I think that there's this idea about media that a journalist is supposed to be absolutely perfect, get everything right. They're still humans. Like,
Thank you.
they're still humans. So I'm happy you brought up that point, because even the best of the best will make mistakes. It's about how you go about moving forward. And I think that that's a part of the, I guess, just journalist education that a lot of young people are missing, is there's different types of writers, and what is a deadline? How do you make that, right? Like, I don't think young people know that. So it's hard for them to put their brains around, how could somebody make a mistake, especially in this era where there's so many tools, checking. It should, like, I feel like people making mistakes can actually be a good sign. We don't want everything to be absolutely perfect, because then I have more questions about how did everything absolutely get right.
He would really love you. But you're right about that. The person giving the facts says who? Where did you get your information from? As you talked about the who, what, when, why, and where. Where did you get your sources from?
Yep. Yeah.
I see my father go out there with that notepad, jot a note down, listen. The key was listening and watching.
Yeah.
And then being able to write.
Exactly.
And I certainly hope that you discover more young writers, people would even learn about Jimmy Breslin or anybody of his ilk in the newspaper business and his book and the books, and respect writers and realize that it's not fake news, it's a profession. And I was so thrilled that someone like you like loved it. It's like, shit, that's great.
Yes, somebody, I mean, that's what I feel like is my purpose on earth. Like I was like, I'm a big nerd. I love education. Like I have other goals. Like I want to be a college president. I want to be a professor. I just love learning. And if I can excite anybody about it, it's so exciting. So just do it. It's like being, I don't know, not knowing things is no fun. It's way more fun to know things than to not. Ignorance is not fully bliss to me. It's not fully bliss.
Well, then I feel a whole lot smarter after listening to you today because I think I learned a little bit here, and
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
same here,
So
likewise.
listen, I want to thank you so much for your time. Everybody should come and keep learning from you, and I certainly will.
In terms if you ever want to find me, LinkedIn is actually the best place. My LinkedIn is KELSCRUSS, and that is actually the handle for my Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn as well. And my email, KELSCRUSS@gmail.com.
Keep reading.
God bless. Take care.